I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and here today with me is Brent Cook, economic geologist and partner at Exploration Insights with Joe Mazumdar. Thank you so much for joining me. Great to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has been a while. And the first thing I wanted to ask you, we see you around a little bit less these days because we've got Joe at the helm of Exploration Insights. What are you up to? What are you focusing on?
Basically, I'm just doing what I want to do. I'm semi-retired. I still work with Joe on the letter, but it's his letter. But we talk about things, 2 or 3 times a week. I still go visit projects that I'm interested in. Basically, I'm looking for places to put my money. Um, that's what I'm doing. And then I play a lot of volleyball and beach volleyball and hike a lot.
There you go. You get to come to events like this.
And I get to come to events like this and speak my mind.
Yeah, so very interesting. So today, we're here at the New Orleans Investment Conference. We have heard a lot of people are speaking their minds here. What's your sense of the sentiment in the sector? And maybe if you could, kind of the health of the resource sector at the moment.
I think it gets worse. I think the entire markets get worse. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, we're going into a recession. There's no way around it, in my view. And the resource sector is going to get hit as hard or harder than the major markets. But looking out from here, I'm pretty excited or encouraged by what I see, in that we are not producing enough metal to meet the demand in most metals. And right now, what I'm really focused on is finding and identifying maybe a dozen companies that have projects that will be economic, with good management, and have the money to last a year and a half minimum. So I think that's what they're going to need. And there's the time coming, I think, within the next 6 months, maybe this November, December, that these things are going to be so cheap that it's time to step in and buy them. And I'm not buying hardly anything now. I've dumped all the stuff I don't think is going to work. Took my tax losses early, and so that's what I'm doing. And that's what I'm here to show. I'm, talking to the companies here in the auditorium, and picking the ones that I think are going to work. Because we're going to come out of this, and it's going to just scream, I think.
Yeah, okay, so a couple of things there. It's interesting you mentioned, there's no question that we're going into a recession. We do have, globally anyway, people who are questioning that. And I think at an event like this, people are coming and they want to know what to do, right? So for you, you said you're not buying now, you're looking around. What would be your signal for now is the time? And it's probably different between different companies, I assume.
Yeah, I'm not going to pick the bottom. I recognize that. But when a company, I remember way back in when I first started working with Rick Rule, there was a company called Virginia Gold. Smart guy running it, had lots of money, and you could buy that company for less than cash in the bank on a market cap valuation. And I did. I bought it, it was like 50 cents. And then I bought it again at 35 cents. I think it got down to 30 cents. And it's like horrible. But that guy came out of it, made a discovery, and I think in total it went to like $15, including the royalty spinoff. So that was from 35 cents to $15 over a 3-year period. I think we're going to see that again.
So during a recession, I think a lot of people are concerned about how will resources, how will commodities fare during a recessionary period. What does the past tell us about what we'll see? And you mentioned you are looking for companies that have at least a year and a half that they can go. So is that kind of the length of time that you see this bad period lasting?
I don't know, but that's kind of what, that's enough cushion that I think we'll come out of it all right. I mean, again, there's no, everything that your audience is listening to or watching from, everything in their room has some connection to metal. Either it was, if you grow an apple, you've got to harvest it, you've got to plow it. All those things require metal. And we don't have enough. We're not making enough metal to meet the future demand. And new mines are taking big mines are taking 10 to 20 years from discovery to production. So yeah, it's looking pretty good long term.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about, aside from cash in the bank, criteria that you're looking for among the companies that you're assembling in your portfolio.
On the exploration side, I need to see a deposit developing that's so good that the company doesn't have to build it themselves. I want it to be bought out by a major mining company. So many companies get stuck into this rut of, okay, they've made a discovery. Now their shareholders want them to drill it out and do some sort of feasibility study on it and yada, yada, yada. That is not where I want to go. I want something that's so good that a major mining company buys it and they don't have to build it. That's the criteria.
And is it commodity agnostic, or I know Joe's really focused on copper right now, he's mentioned. How about yourself?
I think copper is probably one of the better commodities to be looking for. I think any metal that's high margin, any deposit that's high margins is worthwhile. Silver, gold, I always like gold. Um, it's more the quality of the deposit as opposed to the actual commodity.
And the same for jurisdiction, is it again?
Yeah, that gets down to being real local. I mean, there's places in Peru where you can build a mine. There's places where you can't, just like the States or Argentina. So it comes right down to uh, the local politics. I mean, there's some countries you can't go to, right? But there are others that you can.
Oh yeah, well, and I've heard you say just the sheer number of countries that you've visited. So, and you're currently, I guess, back at it, going around on different site visits. Maybe you could talk about the value that you find there, because that's not something that most people get to do.
Certainly in the earlier stages of a program, an exploration program, it's really important to go look at these things on the ground. I mean, pre-COVID, Joe and I did 33 projects in, was it 19 or 2019, I think it was. Joe is visiting at least 2 a month right now. I'm not going to see that many. But you get on the ground and you see things that are not in the flip book. You see something good, like, wow, this is on a hill and it's going to work, and the locals are on board, or it's in a canyon and it's not going to work because it floods, or there's a church on the hill, and you see these things that you don't get out of the websites or presentations. So it's key to go look at it, and it's key to know what you're looking at. I mean, that's what Joe and I do. I've done our whole lives is looked at mineral projects and evaluate them. So there's so much history behind this and experience that you can see the fatal flaw.
Okay, so one thing that I promised I would ask some of our team members, we have an office down in Australia right now,
Uh-huh.
and I know you've expressed some optimism about the ASX listed companies. So I wanted to ask you about that. Is it the companies on the ASX? Is it Australia as a jurisdiction that you like? Is it a combination of both? Like, we seem to be seeing like the Australian companies, you know, coming over here, they're making moves. So what are your thoughts there?
Well, I lived in Australia for quite a while, and I was there just a couple months ago visiting a project, and I spoke at the NUSA conference. Um, the Australian companies are, in general, a bit different than Canadian junior companies. And in Australia, they focus more on, they go from uh, rocks to mines, whereas Canadians tend to go rocks to stocks. There's a lot more hype and pump and such with Canadian stocks, whereas in Australia, it's such a resource-oriented economy that they're more focused on, I think, reality of actually making money from mining as opposed to making money from selling stocks. So that's one of the big differences I see between the two places, and that's why I like Australian uh, the ASX a lot. The problem is we're always a day behind, and we're even farther behind in terms of finding out what's going on in the pub. I mean, a lot you learn a lot in the pubs in Australia.
Yeah. Well, and why do you think there is that difference between the companies there and the companies here in North America?
I think it's a cultural thing. It's just it's the way they go about it. I think because there's few the audience there is more educated. I believe the retail audience is more educated in the resource sector because that's such a big part of their economy. Whereas here, it's there's a lot of people that get fooled easily because it's you hear the hype on stage, gold's going to $5,000 and this company yada yada yada, and we've got this deposit and we've got a 43-101 that says this. That doesn't work so well in Australia.
Well, yeah, that's interesting because, in Vancouver, people are always surprised when they hear what I do to learn that it's like a hub for mining companies. People just don't know. You can kind of ignore it over here, or maybe you can't over there.
Hmm.
So, what do you think? What should investors know? You mentioned, of course, we're a day behind. Are there any special considerations that people, if you are a North American investor and you want to take a look at ASX stocks, what should you know?
Well, I think no matter where the market is, for a retail investor, you need, and you're not a geologist not in the industry, you should really have someone that you can talk to that knows the industry. Be it your broker, be it your brother who's in the industry, or a newsletter. Exploration Insights is I'll be honest, it is the best newsletter out there in terms of you've got two geologists with over 60 years combined experience, and you're getting them cheap. And Joe's letter goes into so much detail. Um, so I think you need, no matter what, it helps a lot to have advice to beat the crowd because we know what most of what we do is look for the fatal flaw. When we visit a project or look at a company, where isn't this going to work? Because we know 90% of them aren't going to work eventually. If we can find that fatal flaw ahead of the crowd, we can still make money.
Okay, well, I think we can wrap it up here unless you had any final thoughts you want to add for our audience. Things on your mind.
I would be cautious right now. I would put together the list of what you want to buy when the shit really hits the fan. That's my advice.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope people take it to heart. We'll see. Thank you so much for coming by to spend some time talking.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and this is Brent Cook.